Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is the classic horror film that I am reviewing this week. New classic movie that I haven't seen. I'm trying to fill in the blind spots of films that I've heard about, people talk about, but I've never seen. And it's fun because I'm able to go back and experience some great movies, which this one is a great movie. It's a tough movie. It's a movie which is going to require me to say not only spoilers, but trigger warnings. If you're somebody that, doesn't want to hear about activities that criminals, serial killers might do, especially to women, there's your warning. Because this is a tough movie. But I've been watching a lot of horror movies. October last month, I watched all the Saw movies. I watched all of the Rob Zombie movies. So I have emotionally and mentally been able to suffer through a lot. I mean, I started off October with Cannibal Holocaust. So, I dove into the deep end. And so this one really shocked me at the fact that despite it being a movie about a serial killer, Henry, and him kind of mentoring a serial killer in kind of the coming age story. He's the Yoda to Otis, who is his Padawan or whatever. I don't even know if those are the correct terms for that movie franchise. But despite that fact, it is kind of a love story. It's a movie that, one, I enjoyed. It's only a few actors. It is Michael Rooker. You got Tracy Arnold plays Becky. You got Tom Towles played Otis. Just kind of, those three are the main three. This is directed and written by John McNaughton. I haven't seen any. I don't know if I've seen any of his other stuff. Wild Things. So I've definitely, I guess you could say I've seen that. Wouldn't mind checking out his other stuff. But this is, kind of a simple film. A beautiful film, like I said. I didn't say that yet. It's a love story. There's definitely a love story, kind of. As much of a love story as you could have. Because all these individuals are very damaged individuals. This is, I would put money on the fact that Rob Zombie was inspired in some way by this movie in the creation of his characters, in the types of movies he wants to make, like really almost making Henry in this movie is almost like a sympathetic character, almost. I mean, you have Becky, which is probably the most innocent of the three. I mean, definitely the most innocent, but also somebody that's survived tons of trauma and is probably why she is still in traumatic situations. Because I believe what tends to happen when you come from trauma is that you tend to keep trauma in your life as you think you're moving away from it. You end up bringing it in. You on some level are attracting more trauma, which I'm sure there's probably actual terms for those types of things. But so we're basically the dynamic between these three. Becky is leaving her shitbag baby daddy, and she's got out of town. She's going to live with her brother Otis, who lives in Chicago, who just recently is living with an acquaintance through prison named Henry. So Henry's his roommate. Otis's sister, Becky is now living with them. This movie opens with these camera pans over these victim scenes, right? You got like two people, gunshot wounds, dead in a liquor store. just a slow pan showing you the dead people. Meanwhile, the music playing is like this new agey kind of like like it's an audio that for me puts me in a state of like, oh, this is like heavenly what I'm watching. This is like relaxing and joyful. This music is drawing those emotions out of me while you're panning to see this gruesome event of people being killed. And it's just, they're not moving or anything. It's just the camera panning over a scene of this crime scene. Nobody's there yet. They haven't been discovered, but it's these victims. And it's these different shots. There's a woman with had been stabbed in like the neck with a Coke bottle. And also you have this like heavenly, like new agey music kind of playing, this like almost like angels singing music. And then it's also overlaid with the audio of how that victim got, like the kind of the interactions that happen right as that event happened. Like you get to hear the audio of that event happening, which is it's a super interesting way to kind of illustrate these different victims, which we don't know, we assume they're Henry's. That's the movie we're watching, Henry's Portrait of Henry's the serial killer, and we're seeing his victims. But it's like it's a weird thing, because I would imagine it's the director putting the audience emotionally in the shoes of a serial killer, whereas a serial killer will see those events as a joyous accomplishment, potentially. So we're seeing, I mean, in this scene, interspliced is Henry getting cigarettes and just driving around Chicago. But kind of beautiful scenes. And then, everybody gets introduced. We see Henry we see Henry kind of working. He's fishing in a parking lot, grocery store parking lot, just watching women, like very voyeuristic, these shots. Just in the parking lot, watching them go to their cars. And you could see that he's just trying to pick out somebody that's going to be an easy person to get. Follows somebody, doesn't really go anywhere. I think he just follows them home. And then later you see him picking up a hitchhiker. Then the next thing you see is him coming home. Like the hitchhiker had this guitar that she put in the back seat. You see Henry getting back to the apartment, back to Otis's apartment, and he's got a gift for Otis. He's got this guitar that he picked up at the pawn shop, or just wherever. So it's like you see like all of these things, like you're kind of getting the context for who Henry is, how he kills people. It's like different every time, and just like these kind of just like there's no real rhyme or reason for what he's different people. And then, we start to see who he is. He's like clearly damaged. You kind of have this interaction where he's like, first off, Becky and Otis. Otis is like constantly telling her, she wants to start working and make money, because she's got a kid, that her mom's taking care of, and the boyfriend is out of the picture, and the Otis keeps making these references like, oh, you should go back into stripping. They have like this weird there's this weird tension between Otis and Becky. Then Becky and Henry hang out for a while, and Otis before that tells Becky like, hey, this is, they met in prison. Otis tells her that the reason that he met, that he killed his mom. So when Henry and Becky are hanging out, they're like opening up, and you're seeing like her damaged. She shares with him her damaged life, that like her dad, once she started going through puberty, started to abuse her sexually, right? And she goes into that, and you see A little over 4 years ago, I started The Many Faces. It's an ongoing series of abstract ink portraits. Each piece is improvised. Each piece is released daily. Start collecting now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. And save yourself 25% when you use coupon code RTS. That stands for The Ray Taylor Show, because that's what you're listening to, and I love you. So I want you to save 25% when you use that coupon code. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF and use coupon code RTS to save 25% when you start collecting one of over 1,600 original ink paintings. By myself, I made them. Support me. I love you. Back to the show. All of these people are damaged. So obviously Otis came from a situation where he's probably abused as well. There's scenes where Otis is like trying to get Becky, like that. At one point they get a video. Well, anyway, let me get back to the interaction. So Becky shares with Henry her sexual abuse, and then she brings up that, you know, she knows Otis told her that he killed her mom, and he's like, can't even remember how, like, he's like, oh no, I didn't beat her with a bat, I shot her, or I stabbed her. And then later while they're talking, he's like, yeah, and I shot that bitch. And from a viewer's standpoint, at least my standpoint, it seems like Henry has killed so many people in so many different ways that probably what was his first kill, his mom, he can't even remember how he did it. Like, I believe that he killed his mom and that's why he went to jail, but I think he's just killed so many people that he doesn't even remember how he killed his own mom. And you can tell that she likes Henry. You could tell that because of her trauma, she is attracted to other traumatic people. Probably because traumatic people that have gone through trauma tend to understand other people that have gone through trauma, and relate to them in a lot of ways, in their damaged, dysfunctional ways. But Henry is so, like, he's like barely there. He's barely there, but he's an interesting character. I mean, the portrayal of Henry by Michael Rooker is a great performance. All of these actors are great. Disturbing, great. I mean, they definitely have like this essence of what Rob Zombie does, like the actors that Rob Zombie uses in his movies. But there's a situation. So Otis, angry dude, TV's not working. It's old tube TV, you know, banging on it, stuff like that. Ends up breaking the TV. They need to go buy a TV. Henry's like, let's go get a TV, right? And they've already, at this point, like, they had, I mean, there's like a scene where Otis is like tried to kiss Becky, like kind of pretending to take on a father role, like, oh, why don't you get your poor old brother a beer, and then tries to kiss her, and like she's like kind of filling this like housewife role. It's a crazy dynamic that's going on that is super fits with all of the trauma that all these people have gone through, and are like, they are severely damaged people, all three of these people. And it's painful to see Otis treating his sister like, is this in like having these, it's tough, but you see where it's going. And for whatever reason, because I'm so destroyed in my own brain, that I'm along for like, okay, Otis is a piece of shit that wants to clearly have some kind of sexual relationship with his sister. His sister likes Henry. Henry's like, I just like killing people. So anyway, that kind of scene happens. Henry grabs Otis and like tells him to like, don't do that shit when he tried to kiss. Because he knows like he'd already had the conversation with Becky about her trauma. And obviously this is like, clearly that family, there was a lot of a lot of sexual abuse going on cross country in that family. Because we see more of Otis. And Otis just like flies off the handle. As far as like one of the scariest people in any movie, Otis is kind of that guy. Henry is like calm and collected. He is, like I said, the Yoda of the situation. Like he is, there's scenes where so that night, they're like, go out and have a beer. I'll clean up the dishes. Becky's like, I'll clean up the dishes after this situation where Otis tries to kiss her. They go out, cut to like a scene where they're both in the car getting blowjobs or whatever, but then Henry kills the girl that he's in the backseat with. A lot of neck snapping in this movie. Then Otis is like, what's going on? And then he like starts to fight. The girl sees what happened. She starts to fight, and then Henry kills her too. And Otis is like, holy shit. Henry just nonchalantly kills both of these women, drags them out, puts them on the side of the alley where they're at. And then they're like, let's get out of here. And then Otis is like, oh, why are you doing this? And this guy's like, listen, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to find out. I don't even know what happened. What happened? Nothing happened as far as I'm concerned. What do you think happened? And it kind of like flips this switch in Otis. And Otis like starts to, he destroys the TV. Then they go out again. And they're like going to get this TV, clearly, after, black market TV, which, by the way, the sales guy, they go into this garage. This fat dude's got all these TVs set up, got a video camera, old VHS video camera, and they're trying to like haggle with price. But like the best, because it's like black market, he's not working for like Circuit City or whatever, Sears and Roebuck was around back then, is kind of the best. He's like I love that character, despite the fact that he gets brutally stabbed with a soldering gun and then a TV smashed over his head. Which, like, you could see, so now they have, like, because they didn't have money for a nice TV, now they can get the nice TV. Now they got it was an inevitable thing when they went to this, get a TV. Like, after they killed those two women, and you kind of have an idea of Henry at this point, and you see that Otis is willing to go along with it. So Henry, like, does this thing. He's like, hey, look we can kind of do this now, too. Like, this is kind of the new freedom that Otis is experiencing, that he can just kill people and get away with stuff. So now they have this video camera. They have this nice TV. They're going back, and now Otis wants to try and film his sister having sex with Henry, which Henry doesn't want to do that. Very awkward kind of a situation. And then they go out. Henry has he sells weed on the side. Or not Henry. Otis sells weed on the side. He works at a gas station. So this kid comes up and asks if he has more weed to buy. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. And he's like, kind of does like a tongue wiggle at the kid in the car when they set it up. He's like, I'll meet you in a couple days. Give me the money now. I'll meet you in a couple days at the park or whatever with the weed. And then when he's saying goodbye to this kid, he gives like a little tongue wiggle, and the kid's like pervert and then peels out, which is kind of a sign for when the kid actually meets up with him and gets the weed. And Otis is like, you want to try it out? Lights a joint. And gives the joint to the kid, and then goes and grabs the kid's thigh and squeezes it like he's hitting on the kid. So it's like, clearly Otis, I would imagine, has a history of that with maybe that kid, Like, it has these subtle things that really flesh out these disgusting characters in ways. And Otis is one of those characters that's like, oh, like it was not just his sister that suffered sexual trauma, probably emotional, physical, all kinds of different trauma in their life. Like, Otis, clearly seems like Otis was in that same mix and got chewed up and spit out in a different way than Becky was. And now Otis, so we're seeing these different shades of Otis, that he's like a horrible person as well. But there's probably the most brutal of these scenes is after they go, he's like giving him his training session where he's like, Henry's like bestowing all this knowledge. It's like, you gotta you got to mix things up. You can't always have the same victims. You got to always change the thing. Meanwhile, they're like videotaping. It also, this movie has the first bum fights. It's one of the things Otis is videotaping everything. One of the things he's videotaping while they're out and Henry's kind of bestowing this knowledge on him is basically bums fighting each other over like stealing alcohol from one another, which eventually became bum fights, which was an early internet sensation, which a friend of mine was friends with the guys that did bum fights in San Diego. But yeah, that was kind of an interesting situation. Like, it just kind of Otis playing around with that video camera. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. So the next scene is like this, they're watching videotape. It's from the perspective of this VHS. So we're not like it's like found footage kind of style of Otis. Well, kind of the camera set up, or Henry's holding the camera, actually filming a home invasion that they did, where they have the husband is got a bag over his head, all beat up, and then you have Otis sexually assaulting a woman. And then the kid comes in. Henry throws the camera down, takes care of the kid. And it's like all this stuff. And then the shot pans out, and you're seeing Otis and Henry on the couch just chilling, watching this movie. Henry leaves to go do something, and then you see Otis go back to rewatch the movie. He wants to watch him sexually assault this woman in slow motion, which VHS slow motion hit a bit different then, but still you could see like where Henry is like the calm and collected serial killer, Otis is like the rabid dog that just got let off the chain. Like, he just realized that he thinks he can get away with everything, and that wasn't the case. And there's so that's extremely disgusting. You know, I mean, it was definitely brutal. There's a scene that I thought was going to come back. This is where Otis and Henry are in the car, and Otis is filming as per usual, and he's like filming all the different women. He's like, "Ooh, that might be a good one." Looking for a target. "Oh, that might be a good one." And he's like hanging out the window, and Henry, which I think on purpose, kind of has him sideswipe like a mirror or something from a car, damaging the camera, because I think he just got tired of that camera being around, which makes sense. I mean, you're filming, like, Henry's whole thing is about not getting caught, and like he bestows all this knowledge about how not to get caught, and then they're also filming, but Otis tosses the camera's broken. He's like, "Ah, you broke it." So he just tosses it out the window with the tape in it. It's like, what's on that tape? I thought that was going to come back. Maybe, I think there's a sequel to this, which I can't imagine being any good. So maybe there's some reckoning in that movie. But so the video camera goes away. It eventually, there's like, Becky wants to move back. She's trying to get Henry to move back with her. Right? She's realized that she's working in a hair salon. She's, whatever. She wants to go back to her kid, get a job back home. I guess the baby daddy's going to the army, so he's going to be out of the picture. So it's like a better situation for her, especially as opposed to being around her brother, which is trying to sexually assault her. So she's trying to get Henry to move with her. And in that whole scenario, she's like trying to she's really trying to get him to move with her. Like she wants him and she's trying to woo him sexually. She wants to have sex with Henry to kind of help I would imagine to help persuade him to come back with her. And Henry's like so detached from any of that. And then the brother wakes up. Like they thought he was passed out drunk, but he wakes up. And Henry's freak, kind of like low key. He's like, I need to get out of here. Like I need to go get some cigarettes. I don't want to be around this. I don't want to be around this woman. I don't need to be around whatever Otis is going to be like right now because he's wasted. But when he leaves, like in that scene, in that scene, it's like the scene in Titane, the Titanium, the French film that I recently watched, where she leaves a situation knowing that the outcome of that situation is not going to go well for somebody. Like you see Otis drunk, already made advances towards his sister, and the one person that could possibly protect Becky, Henry, leaves, gets cigarettes. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about anybody. He just wanted to be out of that situation, regardless of what, probably full well knowing what Otis is going to do. Or maybe not. Maybe not. But that's what I thought. I was like, if Henry leaves, I know what Otis is going to do. I know exactly what his next steps are. Because we've seen it. He's everything that like her trauma started out. He is in all the ways her dad was when he started assaulting her growing up. So Henry leaves and of course comes back to Otis raping his sister. And it's got probably the best kill scene, the most fuck yeah scene of this entire movie is when Henry comes back and then he gets a comb or whatever. And or she gets a comb. He's like he kicks Otis off of her. She gets like this thing, stabs Otis in the eye. It's a crazy scene, kind of like it's drawn out scene, which makes it even better. She stabs him in the eye. It's like fuck yeah. Then you see Henry take the spiky end of this comb out of Otis's eye and then stab him, and then like kind of it takes a while for Otis to die, but it's like it is the best scene, right? In that moment, Otis is the villain, like exponentially, despite the fact how much Henry is a dangerous individual, a serial killer. It's almost like, zombie movies where it's like we find out that humans are more dangerous than the zombies are. Like Otis is more dangerous than Henry is. I mean, and he's shown that. You've seen that progression for Otis getting more and more disgusting. So when that kill happens, it's like there is some justice in this movie. Otis has been killed. And immediately Henry's just like goes to cut up the body and they're like, we got to get out of here. Right. And they're in the car and it's like, oh my God, it's like this weird love story between Becky and Henry. It's like they're riding off into the sunset. They killed the bad guy. Not that I think that Henry's going to change his ways. He seems so dead inside. Right. He like there's no real connection with her romantically, despite her constant like asking him to be with her, but they're together now. And, they're driving to get away and they dump the body and they go to a motel. And then the next day, Henry leaves on his own. He leaves on his own and stops off on the side of the road and drops off this super heavy suitcase, her suitcase that was light when he put it in the car, super heavy now. And she just happens to not be around. And the movie just ends on that on that suitcase. And it's like, despite the fact that there was that moment where it's like, Otis is dead. Like the super villain of this movie, this like rise of this insane serial killer in Otis that would have been caught effortlessly. A guy who multiple times through this movie is rewatching that tape of him rape that woman in the home invasion. Like, he's dead. But then you realize that, oh yeah, this, I mean, it's a romantic horror film, I guess you could call it. I mean, it was like, it has moments of like this love story, but then ultimately you know that like Henry, he's not attached to anybody. He is so detached from humanity, and that end is just, it's perfect, because there's almost like this feeling like, oh, maybe they'll get together and like whatever, I don't know. But no, it makes sense. It makes the most sense that it ends the way it ends. And say whatever you want about Henry and you know, maybe not being able to be in relationships, but he's definitely able to get rid of his baggage. Got rid of. His baggage doesn't follow him. Dumps it on the side of the road. He didn't even try to hide that suitcase. Like, he's so nonchalant about killing people. Like, he's not going through, aside from cutting up Otis's body, like, that is the most. And then whatever he just stuffed her into that. It was a big suitcase, so I'm sure he didn't have to do any cutting. But like, probably the most post-murder prep work he's had to do is after killing Otis. But yeah, kind of a beautiful film in a very dark way that I spoiled every bit of it, but still great. I watched it on Criterion. I can see why it's a Criterion movie. It is dark for sure. It is dark, but I would say if you're a fan of Rob Zombie's movies, then for sure you'll like this. I mean, I feel bad if you're still listening from being spoiled of this entire movie, but yeah, it's great performances all around, brutal characters, and like a horrific, like just cold-blooded serial killer that Michael Rooker portrayed in this movie. But yeah, check it out. If you haven't already, rewatch this movie. It is I'd say it's a masterpiece. Seriously, like every aspect of it is like, whoa. It's like perfect. There's like a scene where she's going out on the town to like just go find a job, and it's really got some cheesy 80s score to it, but other than that didn't really hold up. Everything else, like the panning shots of the murder scenes and the new agey music playing over it, that was like, what am I watching right now? Because I know what emotions that music makes me feel, but what I'm looking at and then what I'm hearing that describes what I'm looking at is brutal. But yeah, it was great. I guess that's the duality of this movie. It's like there's weird moments of beauty. Weird moments of beauty in this otherwise very traumatizing movie. But check it out. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!